Hey everybody, Tosh and Shamar here with Creative Canvas. Today we're painting Purple Haze. Now this is meant to be a very loose, beginner-friendly winter landscape painting. I'm so glad you've joined us. Let's get started.
All right, so to start, I've already got my paint poured. We're going to be starting with titanium white, CAD medium? CAD medium yellow, or yellow, whatever yellow you've got. And then I have a bright red, and then I have 3 piles of cobalt blue. There's no reason in particular to have 3 piles, I just do. I forgot to shake up my paint bottle at one point, so anywho, those are the main colors that we're going to start with. We want to make sure you have a sponge, a nice sea sponge, so that we can use that for dabbing on our foliage. And to begin, we're using an 11 by 14 canvas today. I'm going to start with my 1-inch flat brush. I'm going to need some paper towels because I forgot that part. So thought I was right on. So go ahead and wet your brush down in your cup here. And then I usually do a dab on my paper towel. So I just want to soften up my bristles. Okay, so we're ready to go. First thing we're going to do is we're going to paint the bright background. So I'm going to start by just randomly, I'm going to grab a little bit of white and I'm just going to kind of dab it on there in a few spots. This is just going to help with our colors when we start adding it on there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix a very light yellow. So I'm going to grab a little bit of this white and just a touch of this yellow. Touch more. Now I'm going to come up, I'm going to figure I'm going to have my light source kind of right here in this area of the canvas. I'm just going to add my yellow in there first. I'm going to add just a little bit more yellow to that. Get a nice bright yellow right in there. And now I'm going to pick up and add a little bit more white to my yellow. And I'm going to grab just a touch of that red. Again, kind of a pinkish color going on here, real light pink. Okay, now I'm going to add that to the outside of my yellow and just softly blend it in with my yellow. On this side as well. So it's very light pink, yellow, light coming from the background. Now I'm going to add just a little tiny touch of water to my brush. I'm going to extend this out just a bit more. Add a little bit more white to that. Maybe a little bit more red too. More pinky. There we go. It should still be wet, so it should blend nicely. Okay, it's a very faint, light color there. That's what we're going for. Okay, so once you get that on there, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start by mixing a darker purple to kind of go around our outside edges here. And so I'm going to go ahead and rinse my brush thoroughly. And then I'm going to do a dab on my paper towel. Okay, so this next color we're going to mix is going to be a dark purple. I'm going to grab some blue off of this plate. Don't want it to be confusing, so I'm just switching the plate here. And some red. Okay. So we are going to start with some white, some titanium white. I'm going to grab that, mix that here. Grab a little bit of blue, a little bit at a time here is what I like to do. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of red, a little bit more blue, going for kind of a darker. That actually is pretty close. This is going to be kind of our mid-tone for our background. So I've got a little bit too much water on my brush here. I'm just going to get some of that off. Okay, so now I'm just going to paint this color along the outside edges here. I'm not necessarily moving into my light yet. Just going to try and get that on there. Now we're going to have a horizon line here, which is going to come up. See, this is about the halfway mark. We're going to come down, so it's about a quarter of the way up. I'm just going to make this slight line here so that we know where that's at. I'm going to fill this in down to there.
Like a bird on a tree.
And then on this side, we're going to do it too, just not quite so far out. We're just going to come out just a little bit, fill in that space here. And of course, I'm going to have to mix some more. Grab some more blue. A little bit more red. And then a touch of this white.
It's so beautiful, you and me.
If it's not exact, it's okay, but I'm just going to try and get as close as I can to that color.
Forever free.
It's pretty close. A little bit more blue. Okay. So I'm going to continue on this edge here. Follow this along the bottom. And I'm just kind of filling it into about where that light is.
Take a step back.
And then we're going to come in and do some sponge work here. Just want to make sure that we don't have a ton of canvas poking through. So we got good coverage on the background here. Okay. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix. Let's see. I'm going to mix. I got this light purple here, so now I'm going to actually mix a little bit more white into that. I'm going to lighten it up a bit. Just like that, so we get this really nice lavender. Wouldn't you call that lavender? Lavender color. Or periwinkle. Periwinkle. I never can think of that word. Alright, so now I've got that color mixed. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my sponge. Now I pre-moistened my sponge, so it's already ready to go. So I'm going to just pick a good spot on my sponge where I like the texture, and I'm going to pinch it so I have a little bit more control. I'm going to add it in there. Now this color is going to be my lightest trees furthest in the background, so I'm going to bring some of them into my light here, and actually I might add a little bit more white. I'm going to grab a little bit more white and mix that in.
I'm just sitting here.
Don't want it too bright. Okay, there we go. Now I'm just barely going to come into my light here, as if there's some trees way far in the background. Do the same thing on this side.
We can sit together.
Maybe come down a little bit.
It's so beautiful, you and me. We meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free.
You want it to look like there's a full forest, but you don't want you don't want to completely cover up your light source either. all this over here. Follow this up a little. Go down to my colors here.
Sometimes you need to go.
Pull this up here.
Take a step back.
Okay, so next step is I'm going to create a different color. I'm going to go ahead and set my sponge aside. First I'm going to dip it in the water and kind of wring it out a little bit. Do you want me to just get a cup for you? Yeah, it's okay. I think I got it. I just need a place to put my plate down. Tight quarters over here. So I'm just going to dip my sponge in here, wring it out a little bit.
The great outdoors.
And then I'm going to use my paper towel here to kind of dab it off. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create another pink. So I'm going to come back to this plate. We're going to be using the sponge again. So I'm just going to use a 1/2 inch flat to kind of mix my color up. If you have a palette knife and you're good with the palette knife, you can use that. Palette knife has a tendency, you use a lot less paint when you're using a palette knife to mix your colors. Okay, so first thing I'm going to grab some of this white. I'm going to grab a little bit of this red. Mix that up a little bit more. We want it a little bit darker than what we got going on there. So I'm going to go a little bit darker. Add a little bit more red.
I'm just sitting here. I got time.
Check that out. That's a little too dark. There's a perfect in-between middle. So I get this pink. Now I'm just going to grab just a tiny touch of this blue.
The world seems small.
And add that in there.
We can sit.
Kind of mute it just a little bit. Okay, I think I like that color. Yeah. Okay, so now I got my color mix. I'm gonna grab my sponge, pick up some of that pink, and I'm gonna create the idea of these trees kind of coming up here.
Forever free.
So as I come up, I'm almost making like a pine tree. Some extra pink foliage here in the back.
Sometimes you need to go.
Come up and maybe add a little bit up here as
Take a
well.
step back. To see the
You want to still be able to see your sky,
around you.
so you don't want to completely cover.
From a distance you
Now I'm going to add just a touch more blue to that. Darker, a little bit more white. As you can see, I'm using my sponge now to mix my colors. Never works. Okay, this is a little bit darker pink. So I'm just going to bring that down here at the bottom. Make sure it's all filled in good. Okay, so now that I got that, we are going to do the darkest of the purples now. So, you don't really need to rinse, just kind of dab off if you have a ton of paint still on your sponge, just kind of dab it off a little bit. Okay. So, grab this other plate again. I'm sticking with my 1-inch flat to mix this color. We're going to start by mixing our blue. Grabbing a chunk of blue here. We're going to add a little bit of red to that.
I'm just sitting here.
And then just a touch of this white.
It's clear to see.
So you get this nice dark purple.
From up here.
It's pretty good. Might add a little bit more blue.
World seems small. We can sit together.
Okay, so
It's so beautiful.
now
You and me.
I'm going to grab my sponge. I'm going to pick up that purple.
Meant to be
And I'm going to come in on this side here.
in the great outdoors.
I'm going to do this darker color here.
Forever free.
I'm want it a little bit thicker, but we're gonna come back in with a lighter purple to kind of finish off those edges. Should have done that sooner, but in fact, so we're just gonna make it, I'm gonna make it real thick because I want it to really be dark on my edges and lighten as it moves towards the center here. So I'm just gonna add this darker purple
From a distance you can tell.
all along here. I forgot to do my lighter purple, and I'm just now realizing that. So we've got a darker purple on here, and that's fine. So what I'm gonna do is just add a little bit of white to that so that we can do the lighter purple that I forgot to finish off in the background.
Great outdoors.
So I'm gonna add a little white to my plate. And I'm gonna go ahead and take my 1/2 inch flat again. I'm gonna mix this color up. I'm gonna grab a little bit more white here.
In the great
I meant to do that when I had it already mixed on my plate, and somehow, I don't remember why. Grab a little bit more blue.
You were just so excited to get the sponging.
I wanted to start sponging immediately. So I'm trying to get as close to this kind of purpley color as I can. So we're gonna go with a little bit more blue. And a little bit more red. More blue. Pretty close. Yep, that's pretty close. Okay, so I got kind of a mess on here, but that's okay. I'm gonna wipe my brush off the best I can. Okay, now I'm going to grab my sponge. I'm gonna dab off that darker purple.
It's clear to see
I might need more paper towels, sis. You wanna hand me a few more?
from up here. The world seems small.
Thank you. Dab off that darker purple. You don't have to completely wash it. Just dabbing that off. So now I'm going to grab some of this purple, which should come close to matching what I got going on here. Now, I'm going to, all I want to do is create foliage with those edges versus these brush marks. So I'm going to fix those brush marks. And stop moving. And come down a little bit.
You're always kind of throwing your hand.
Yes, when you're doing your sponge, you don't wanna, do the same thing over and over again. I move my sponge in all sorts of different directions to create
From a distance you can tell.
different looks. I'm gonna come up and create maybe some bushes here. Then come in and create maybe just something that's coming down here.
Meant to be in the great
Something comes up
outdoors.
here. Okay,
Forever
that looks
free.
pretty good. Now that I've fixed that, I can go back to my darker purple and continue. It's just basically layering,
Meant to be
going from the lighter outside to the dark.
in the great outdoors.
So, I'm gonna go ahead and mix that darker purple up again. So I've got my 1/2 inch flat once again. I'm gonna grab a good chunk of this blue, a good chunk of this purple. I'm sorry, that's red. Gosh, I'm batting, doing real well. Okay, so we have this kind of darker purple going on here. Again, just dab off your sponge. Don't have to completely clean it. Now I'm gonna grab the darker purple again, start working with that. I'm gonna hold my canvas because apparently it's so strong. I'm just gonna knock it over. So I'm gonna come in, that darker. Mix quite a bit more of that color. The sponge just kind of eats it up fast. Just a little bit of this lighter purple in there, just lighten it up just a touch. again, I'm turning my sponge every which direction here. Come over to this side, got those darker values. This edge coming up. That's our background right here. Okay, so I'm gonna let that be. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna work on our foreground. To do that, I'm gonna keep this purple plate because we're just gonna create like a shadowed colored snow. I'm just gonna add a little bit of black, Mars black, onto it. And so now what I want to do is we're going to create this, it's kind of a darker blue-gray. I have kind of a dry spot here, so I'm going to grab some blue. Sorry, it's like a mid-tone blue-gray. It's hard to explain. Let me go ahead and just mix it up for you. If you get a little purple in there, it's okay. And then I'm going to grab just a little bit of this, a little bit of this black, some white, just a little of that purple in there. Okay, let's see, is that going to be too dark? That's a little dark, so we're going to add some more white. That's way too much white. Actually, no, it's not. It's pretty good. Okay, so we've got this bluish grayish color going on here. Now I'm just using my 1/2-inch brush. I'm just going to fill in this foreground here. We can even add just a little bit more white to that, I think. Yeah. We want it to be our shadow snow, but we don't want it so dark. And I'm also going to add just a touch of this purple that we mixed up earlier. I don't always have a plan. I just kind of start mixing colors on my plate, which I know is kind of a pain in the butt to follow. So I've kind of got a mix of different colors going on here, but the important thing is this is our shadow snow. So I'm going to fill in this entire foreground with our shadowed snow. And then as it comes closer to me, I'm going to add just a little bit of white to it to kind of lighten it up just a bit.
You guys also want to make sure that you're coming around the side of the...
Yeah, I'm really bad about remembering that.
But the front edge.
Yes. I'm going to mix up some more paint here. Some more of this blue. A little bit of white. Touch of the black. More white. And then I'm just grabbing some purple for good measure. And a little bit more white. Okay. And I'm just going to fill in this area. Okay, that's pretty good. Now we're going to darken this color. I want you to just make sure you got your canvas pretty well covered. You can see a whole lot of white canvas poking through. You can do some fluid strokes here all the way across your canvas so you don't end up with a bunch of brush strokes in there as well. Just make sure it's somewhat smooth. We'll let that dry. And then the next step is to add some trees in the background. And so I'm just going to keep the same spot here. We're just going to go a touch darker. So I'm going to grab some of this blue and add a bit more of this black. It's going to be kind of a darker grayish color. It's pretty close right there. I'm going to test it here. See how that looks. And we might want to go just a little bit more. Okay, so what I'm going to do is create the idea of these trees in the background. I'm just going to do simple trees up and down. I've still got my 1/2-inch flat brush. And in this aspect, I'm going to start here at the top and just pull my brush down and just kind of let it disappear a little bit here. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to pull my brush down, have it disappear. Do the same thing right up here. I don't think I want to put a ton right in the center where my light source is, so I'm going to kind of create them up here. And you can create branches that come off of it. I think I'll put maybe another one coming right in through here. Okay, so now I've got those little branches. What I'd like to do is also create a little pine tree. So my pine tree is actually going to be right here in front, just a little one. I'm going to start it about right here and bring that down. And I'm also going to have one maybe, let's say right here, a little taller. Okay, so I'm still using that same color. Now for my pine trees, I like to come in using just the corner of my brush. I'm going to use my pinky, make sure it's dry. My foreground is not dry, but my background is. So I'm going to use my pinky to kind of hold it steady. I'm just going to start with just the corner tip of the brush. I'm going to just dab, because I want this to be the top of my tree. But as I come down, I'm going to get a little bit wider as I'm dabbing it down. And then kind of angle it down. So I'm going to be adding some snow to this. So we know those branches are going to be a little bit heavy. And as you come down, it's going to get wider and wider as you go. I'm just going to bring it down right down to my foreground area here. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with this guy over here. Start with just the corner. And as you come down, you get a little bit bigger and bigger. And start to weigh down them branches here. So we have a couple little pine trees in the back there. And then the next thing we want to do is we may actually want to let's create one more bigger pine tree kind of over here in the corner. Maybe about this big. You don't have to put, you can put as many pine trees in as you want, guys. You don't have to put as many as me. Because we're going to put kind of 2 big trees right here in the front. This how's the glare on this? Does it look pretty decent? Yeah. We're testing out some new lights because we've had some issues with some glare in the past, so hopefully it looks a little bit better.
We are going to have to take a small
little break.
Yep.
Okay. Let me get this tree on here, and then we'll let this dry because we gotta have it dry anyway, so that we can put our snow on there. Okay. We'll be back. All right, we are back. We are going to mix some more of this darker color that we used here because I want to add some bushes right here in front. So, I've got my 1/2-inch flat. I'm going to go ahead and grab some of this black, a little bit of white, grab some more of this blue from over here. A little bit darker, but that's okay because the bushes are closer to us, so we're gonna be fine with that. A little bit more blue to that. Okay. Test. Yep, looks good. Now I'm going to set this brush aside. Well, I should put just a bit more because I'm going to use the sponge and it's going to just eat up all of that paint. So I'm going to add just a little bit more here.
iPhone.
I know, right? It only does that when we're recording something. Okay, so I'm going to grab my sponge once again. I've kind of rinsed it out and dabbed it off. And I'm going to go ahead and add some bushes coming up right in through here. Just right in front, kind of some here and there. Come over. Bushes in there. I'm not so worried about this because I'm going to be adding some snow highlights. Set my sponge aside. I'm going to go ahead and grab my 1/2 inch flat once again. Got quite a bit of paint on it, so I'm going to wipe some of that paint off. Now I'm going to create a first layer of snow. It's going to be kind of the shadow snow that's going to go on these trees. It's going to be very similar to this color down here. So I'm going to grab some white, a touch of this cobalt blue, and I'm just going to grab just a little bit of this darker color and mix that in there. I'm going to grab some more white here, a little more blue. I'm going to grab just a touch of this purple here, again with a darker color. If you don't have any of that left, you can just grab a little bit of black. I think that's going to be really light. So we're just going to go a little bit darker. It doesn't have to be exactly that dark, just similar. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of snow to my trees. So I'm going to add just a little bit more of this purple here. So we have a little bit of that purple color. Now I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to use just the corner of my brush to kind of dab it on there. And I'm just going to dab it. I'm going to leave some space where you can still see the dark, but I'm just using just the corner to kind of dab this snow on it. And then I kind of turn it. Make sure you kind of turn it every which direction here so it looks a little natural. Do the same thing over here. Hopefully it's not glary to you guys, it's just a little bit glary to me. This is my angle. Dabbing this on there, like I said, making sure that I get it kind of on top of the tree branches that are angled down. Okay, that's pretty good. Now, I'm gonna do the same thing on my bushes here. I'm gonna grab my sponge and I'm just gonna try and wipe most of that paint off of there. If you have two sponges, it kind of comes in handy. So I'm gonna do a little bit of a rinse. I'm just gonna dip my sponge in the water just a little bit, rinse it out. Just a little bit. And then I'm gonna grab my paper towel and just dab on there. Most of that off of there.
Now, if they didn't have a sponge,
If you didn't have a sponge, you could literally just use your brush to do this. And I'll show you both ways. So with the sponge, I'm gonna go ahead and grab a little bit of this snow color and I'm gonna come right in over the top of these bushes and just add a little bit of snow here and there. I just love the look of the sponge, but yeah, you don't have to have a sponge to get this effect.
you could also use some balled up saran wrap
Balled up saran wrap works.
or tin foil.
Now, if you wanted to get that same look, I would use your brush just like we were using, and you can do the dab on the bushes as well. And I kind of go this direction with it. Just like that. You don't want it everywhere, you just kind of want it in some spots because you still want the dark shadow underneath as well. Okay. So now all I'm going to do is rinse my brush. Bless you.
I'm not sure what
Was that a sneeze?
No, it was me trying not to cough. And I'm like, I don't have to cough. And then it squeaked out.
It squeaked out. Okay, so now I'm going to grab a little bit more white and add it to that color. Make it a little bit brighter. We're going to use this as a highlight down below as well. So I'm just going to add a little bit more of a highlight on just this side. Just this side. I'm just using the corner of my brush once again to dab it on there. We'll come back with a little bit final highlight that's a little bit brighter. And then just to the top, you can use your sponge or you can just use a brush in a couple of spots here. And sometimes it helps if your brush is kind of not flat or straight at the end. It's kind of like mushed up, boogered up. Older brushes work really good for this sort of thing. A little bit of highlight here and there. Okay, now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to create some highlights in this snow. I'm going to come right below kind of where it's thickest here and I'm going to bring this highlight in first. Like so. I'm going to cover up some of that sponge, that bottom sponge work here. Kind of give it so the idea that there's snow piled right up in front of those bushes. Cover this up. And then once that area is pretty well covered, I'm going to start creating little areas here where there's some highlights in the snow. Maybe have some hills. Kind of randomly create. The idea that these highlights are down here. To that. I'll grab just a touch of this purple and mix it in there. Okay. Anytime you kind of create an angle, it gives the idea that there's maybe like a hill there. I'm gonna get more highlights as we come through here. Now at this point I don't have that much paint on my brush, so I'm just kind of just almost like a dry brush effect. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add our trees that are a little bit closer to us. So we're going to do that with a darker blue-gray. We're going to start with that first. I'm going to leave a little bit more white on my plate here. Okay, so I'm going to grab some blue. Over here. So I'm going to start with a little bit of black, a little bit of blue, just a touch of this white. We want it a little bit darker than what we got going on there now. So something about like that. Okay, a little bit more black. Now I'm going to create 2 trees, one on each side. This one, I'm going to have a trunk about right here. So this is where my trunk's going to be. And let's make it about this thick or so. I can always make it thicker, but for now, I'm going to bring just the one line straight up here so I know where my tree's going to be. Okay. And now I'm going to kind of fill that in. Trunk at the bottom, at the base it's going to be a little bit thicker. I'm even going to angle it a little bit to give the idea that there's snow piled up. I'm going to add just a touch more black to that. More black. Okay, there we go. A little bit thicker. Okay. Now I'm also going to do another one on the other side, only it's going to be back a little bit further. So I'm going to say that it's maybe right in here. A little bit more of this color. Okay, so we have a couple of trees here. Now it's time to kind of create some foliage, some tree branches. Now I'm going to stick with my 1-inch flat to create the idea of these branches. Now these ones are a little bit closer, so it's going to be a little bit more detail. You're going to see the boughs a little bit better. Whenever you do one side, you kind of want to do and flip and kind of do to the other side. I'm just kind of dabbing this on here as you're coming down. Now there's probably a name for these trees, but I'm not going to bring the pine trees all the way down to the base. I'm going to bring it down to about right here. I'm keeping it skinny at first. You can always add to it, but you can't take away. Dabbing as I go. It's like a little bit of a dab. Okay. So about right there is where I'm going to go with that. I'm going to do the same thing over here on this side. So about like that. Okay, so we've already done the shadow snow for the trees in the back. So we're gonna go ahead and mix another shadow color for these trees, and then we'll add some snow to that. So I'm gonna go ahead and rinse my brush, get some of that dark out of there. Dab dab on my paper towel. Now I'm going to grab some of this white, a little bit of the blue. I'm also going to add just a little bit of red. I'm going to need, that was a little too much, but that's okay. Go with it, just go with it. So we have this purpley color here. I'm going to grab a little bit of this black and mix it in there. This will be our shadow snow. It's a little bit lighter, so let's grab just a little bit more black. Okay, now I'm kind of scrunching up the end. I push down on the bristles. You can see how the bristles separate, and that's going to be easier to kind of create the idea of snow. So same thing, we're just going to kind of dab it on those boughs. Back and forth. Trying not so much to create a pattern, trying to keep it somewhat patternless, but oh, it's so hard to do. Okay, now this side, let's fix that up there a little bit more. Okay, so we have some good shadow snow going on. Now I'm going to go ahead and we want to come up with, well, let's go ahead and do the tree bark first. For that, I am going to need a little burnt sienna. Sis, do you happen to see? I have some in my bag over there. I forgot to grab it. So we're going to add just a slight highlight to our trees here and also in the back. What you can see in the back. And it's actually burnt umber is what we're using. You can use burnt umber or burnt sienna, any kind of a brown color that you have on hand. And if you don't have that, you can mix your yellow and your, come on out, your yellow, red, and blue to kind of create a brown. But for now, we're going to cheat and we're going to use this brown. So what I'm going to do is grab a little bit of this brown and a touch of the black and a little bit of white. Okay, that was way too much white, so we're going to do that again. I always do that. A little bit of black, a little bit more brown. That's okay. We want kind of a darker brown color. Let's see what that looks like. And we're just going to add it to the side facing the light. So it's going to be this side. I'm going to use my 1/2 inch flat and I'm just going to go sideways here. I'm going to add a little bit more black to that. I'm actually going to go a touch darker. And I'm just going to bring this highlight down just to the edge of the tree here. Kind of create the idea of bark. See how I do that? Just along that edge. I'm going to leave this side dark. And do the same thing over here. Harder to do. Using my brush sideways here. Now at this point I want to make sure I have a nice straight edge because that helps getting that just right on the edge there. have what looks like some tree bark here. Just bring that up into your, disappears underneath your snow here. Now I'm going to come back and do just a slight highlight back here as well. And it's actually going to have to go a little bit lighter. So I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit of white to this. Just a little bit. And a little bit of this blue. Blue just kind of makes it not quite so bright. A little bit more white, not quite there yet. Come back and just add a slight highlight to the edge of this tree. Still not quite bright enough. Add just a little bit more white. There we go. Just kind of dab some highlight on there to the edge that's facing the light source. Same over here. Just kind of dab it. That's about it. There's another one. Okay, so I'm also going to take this color, since it's lighter, and come right along the front edge of my tree. Create just one more little slight highlight on the bark. Same down here. So the next thing we need to do is we just need to create a few more highlights to our snow, and then that's pretty much it. So I'm going to rinse my brush real good. I'm going to come back and grab white first. Find a spot here. I'm going to add a little bit of blue. And a little bit of this red. That's way too much red. I'm gonna grab quite a bit more of this. I kind of like that pink. We might come back and add a pink highlight. Kind of flying by the seat of my pants. I'm gonna add a little bit more blue to this. Okay. Let's see what that looks like. I'm gonna add. That's way too bright yet. We need to dial it back just a bit. So I'm going to add some more blue and a touch of this black. Just to dial it back just a bit. Okay, I'm going to start up here in my tree and add a little bit of this highlight just to the side that's, again, where the light's coming from. Just on this side. Right on top of my other highlight. Same thing on this side. Okay, now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to add this highlight. I'm going to imagine that there's a little bit of a shadow on this side of the bushes. So I'm going to grab this highlight and add just a little bit here. On top of your other highlight, but not quite as much. And then I'm also going to use this right in front of my tree here. To kind of fix the edge of that. Do that here too. Oops, messed that up. And come back and fix that. Okay. So we're going to add just a few more highlights here and there. And then what we'll do is we'll add some more white to that. Just one right here in front here. So however you want it to look. Now I'm going to add a little bit more white and brighten it up. And a little bit less. Kind of like the idea that my light is really kind of centered here. Now you don't want to go back behind the tree because that's going to be more shadowed area, but you could pile some snow up in front. Same here. A little snow up there. The more highlights you add, the more, gives it more depth. Okay, now I'm going to add quite a bit more white. And I'm going to come just right over the top of where I was before. Again, I kind of want to center those highlights in through here. Okay, now I'm going to use the same color up here in my tree to give it some brighter highlights. If you want your highlights to be modest, then you can just kind of leave it as is. Sometimes I like to add several different highlights until I kind of get it to the point where I'm like, okay, that's bright enough. Sometimes going straight white is too much. I'm just adding it to this side where I would imagine the light's hitting the edge of the tree here. I'm also going to do a little bit back here on these guys, just on the edge. Brighten that up just a little bit. This one really could have highlights on either side. Almost like as if it was glowing. And then for my final highlight, I think I'm going to do a little bit of white mixed with some pink. So I'm going to wipe my brush off. So I'm going to grab a little tiny bit of this red. Got way too much red. Never do that? Way too much red. Find a different spot. Okay. So I got this pink. Let's see if that's going to be too bright. No, I think it's pretty good. Add just a little bit more white to it. This is going to be my final highlight. I want it to stick out. Okay. Add it to the top where my other highlights are. Again, kind of centering that. A little bit more white to your pink, you can do that. Up. Definitely see where my highlights are now. See that light coming in. Just a little bit over here. I'll have to fix that now. Once you kind of get it to a point where you like it, you see enough highlights, leave it and come up and add just a little bit more to just the edge of your trees. I like that pink. I really kind of got it thick on my brush here, so I can dab it on there. That makes the tree pop. There we go. Looks pretty good. Add a little bit of that pink back here. The trees look like this tree's growing just a little bit more. Same on this side. Yeah. This is very loose, guys. It's not meant to be perfect. Now I'm going to add just a little bit to these bushes in a couple of spots where the light might be coming through. And right here. And then on this edge. Other than that, that's pretty much it, aside from I need to fix that little spot. Oh, we forgot our shadows. Hang on, we need some tree shadows. So, I'm going to mix up a little bit of a darker blue-gray again. Grab some of this black. Quickly running out of space here. Grab a little blue. Grab some of the white. First I'm going to fix that little spot. There we go. And that one. Okay, so to create your shadow, imagining my light's coming in from here. So I'm just going to kind of come down here and draw this shadow coming that direction. Of course you can't see it because my easel's in the way. So hang on a second. Fix that. I've got so much paint on there. There we go. So I've got my shadow coming down this edge. And then this one I'm going to imagine coming down on this edge. Okay, that is it. Now it's time to sign your painting. I think I got a detail brush over here somewhere. Okay, so I have a detail brush. I'm gonna wet it down. Pick the color. Which is gonna be, I'll grab some of this pink. Put crinkly paper on here. And then I'm going to sign here. Ta-da! And I'm not really sure what to call this one. What do you think, sis?
Purple haze.
I love it. Okay, purple haze. That sounds good to me. Anyways, that is it, guys. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. We would love to hear some feedback from you. And we would also love to see your painting. So if you're comfortable sharing with us on Facebook, Creative Canvas, or on our Creative Canvas community page.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Yes, please. I always forget that part. Subscribe and hit the little notification bell so you get notified every time we add a new video. So thanks again, guys. We'll see you next time.